The sign-in book for each member sign-in will be at the front door. The hostesses will be responsible for signing up the users and the membership.
You're talking about members and guests signing in at the same time, right?
Yes.
There's membership roll that's sitting somewhere. A lot of the
Membership roll is kept in correct. But the guest sign-in book will be at the front where the person can enter and has to sign in. That's correct.
Okay, any other questions of the board? Mr. Hogue, you have anything else, Counselor, y'all need to add before we turn this over to Mr. Hogue?
We have 2 other witnesses.
Okay.
Mr. Dacus.
Sir, if you'll identify yourself and your relation to this case, please.
I'm Fred Dacus, lived in Jonesboro for 65 years, operate a real estate company there since 1974.
As far as your relation to this case, you don't have any relation to this?
No, I do not.
Other than just personal interest in the residents for promoting public convenience.
That's correct.
Okay. State your full name, please.
Fred Dacus.
And you told us how long you lived in Jonesboro. You had a real estate company there how long?
Since 1974.
Okay. And you work with people who live in Jonesboro who live real estate companies?
Yes, we do a lot of corporate relocation. We work with a lot of developers, people coming to Jonesboro as well as longtime residents.
Okay. And in your opinion, in discussing your personal opinion as well as discussing this with the people who are coming to Jonesboro, do you believe that there are sufficient options to have a meal and a glass of wine or a drink?
We are told often that there are not. Just a few years ago, the first manager of Frito-Lay came and was in Jonesboro for a couple of years, and when he left, he personally said to me, we've enjoyed our time in Jonesboro, but we're going to be so happy to get back somewhere where we have a greater choice of restaurants, and we'll also have the ability to have a glass of wine with our dinner. And I think that type thought has been expressed to us frequently.
You're a good person to ask this to, I think. What was the population of Jonesboro in 1990?
You would.
It's right here.
Okay.
We got it now?
Yeah,
We got it?
It's been here all along.
Oh.
It says population percent change 1990 to 2000. Benton County was 57% and Jonesboro was 19.1.
Okay, so the county's grown almost 20% in that.
I'm glad he had those
in that
numbers.
period. Okay,
Thank you.
that answered us. Thank you, Judge. All right, go ahead, sir.
And do you believe that the menu that will be used is similar to the Charleys menu will serve the public convenience and
I do. Oh, Charleys is located just a few blocks from my office, as is 501 and the Mallard Club. And the 501 is a fine dining establishment, but there are probably a lot of people that would prefer not to spend that much money to go there. Definitely there are a lot of people that prefer to go to an environment such as Charleys.
Do you regularly go to Charleys?
I do.
And would you like to be able to purchase a glass of wine or a drink or dinner at the Charleys?
Yes, I would.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Just a very brief story. A month ago, I worked with a large developer from another state. We spent the morning looking at properties. I took him for lunch to Old Charleys, and as we were walking up to the front door, there was a big notice taped to the front door that Old Charleys was applying for a permit to serve liquor, and he said, what is this? And so I explained it to him, and he said, do you mean right now we could not have a glass of wine? I said, that's correct. He said, I got to get a picture of this. He backed up and took a picture of the notice. Now, I haven't heard back from that company, but I got the impression that he felt that that was at least unusual.
Let me ask you a question. Do you, how do you feel about the wetness or dryness, if you will, of Craighead County? Do you more support restaurant alcohol, or would you favor an entirely wet county with liquor stores and things that go with that a lot of times?
Well, this is just my personal
Sure,
preference.
that's what I'm asking.
Would be not to have additional bars such as the Red Bar, that's the name of it, and liquor stores, but to have a greater variety of restaurants.
So you support basically restaurant alcohol?
Yes, I do. One of our developers was quoted in the newspaper as saying that the Olive Garden had told him that they would not come to Jonesboro unless they could have a liquor permit. I would like to have Olive Garden in Jonesboro. So that's just my position.
All right. Any questions of the board of this gentleman? Mr. Hogue.
My title? I don't have a title.
That's a job.
I'm principal broker of Fred Dacus Associates Realtors.
Very good, okay. And you're maintaining to the board that Jonesboro, not we, I don't live in Jonesboro, that Jonesboro loses some business or some industry because of the alcohol issue, is that right?
You know, I don't know that people would say we're not going to go there because of the alcohol issue. I can tell you that that person who told me he was happy to be going somewhere else because of that is a very influential person in his company, and you know, it would be my opinion that that's not a favorable thing.
Do you have reason to believe the only reason he's not moving a big company to Jonesboro is because he can't get a glass of wine where he wants?
I wouldn't think that you know would be a make or break deal, but
There's probably other reasons.
I would imagine.
Okay. And have you ever looked into being interested in the Jonesboro economy? Have you ever looked into whether restaurants such as Olive Garden, such as Outback, tend to do better without alcohol or with alcohol? For example, there's an Outback in Conway that didn't have alcohol for some time, and it was doing actually it was grossing better than a lot of the Outbacks with alcohol in other areas of the state. Have you ever looked into that?
I don't know about that. I just know that some restaurants apparently have said that they would not come without alcohol.
So you've never responded back to them and said there are some proof that they could do better without the alcohol in this county?
No, I have not.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate you taking time to come down. Counselor?
Thanks for coming, Fred.
Thank you very much. If you'll identify yourself for the record, please.
Chantel Thomas, current ASU student and also an employee at Charleys. I'm 23 years old.
Okay, you previously stated that you worked at Charleys. How long have you been in it?
3 years.
Okay, what is your position though?
I'm the hostess.
Okay, and as the hostess, do you see that the hostess station has already been referred to the board?
Yes, ma'am.
And so that is where the book is kept?
Yes.
For the sign position and signatures?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what ability have you had to use to send customer feedback on the petition signatures? If the signing the petition and people are positive about wanting to put that kind of
Yes.
Charleys. Okay, and also tell us about your capacity as an ASU student. Have you had reason to speak with other ASU students about their feelings at Charleys and employment?
Yes, there are plenty of ASU students who come to the restaurant. They have had a lot of feedback on wanting the liquor license, and also they are telling their friends to come in and sign the petition. I've talked about it in some of my business classes with other students, and it's all been like 100% positive feedback.
Okay, what is your major?
I'm a business administration major. December 2006.
Okay, and so you have saying reasons to understand the nonprofit purpose behind Blue Dress doing business in
Yes.
Charleys. What do you think of that nonprofit purpose?
I think it's an excellent thing. Tuition goes up every year, so every little bit helps. With me having to take out loans and my parents helping me pay for schooling, it's a very good opportunity for ASU students.
Sure. Thank you. In regard to the existing permits, how do you feel that the students, on behalf of the ASU students that you're here, and in regard to conversations you've had with other Charleys employees, do you feel that the existing permits that have already been granted adequately represent what is needed in Jonesboro?
No, it does not.
And tell us why you believe that.
Because it's just so expensive. As a college student, we struggle. It's always hard to come by money. No matter how much your parents help you out or how much you work, it's still a little struggle.
You're talking about students that are 21 that are
Yes,
able
sir.
to consume an adult beverage,
Yes, sir.
aren't you? Okay, I just wanted to clear that up.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you cleared that up, and thank you for stating so. In addition to that, tell us with Charleys, is it anything like the 501 or the Mallard Club or Club Red, the three that have been mentioned and closest to Charleys?
Nothing at all.
And have you visited 501 Mallard and Club Red?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And as working at Charleys for 3 years, I assume you have had the ability and experience to be familiar with parking. Has that ever been an issue for
No,
you?
never.
Okay, and safety?
No. The parking lot's well lit at nighttime, so it's very accessible.
Okay, is the location of Charleys a suitable area in your opinion?
Yes, it is.
Why else can you tell us there should be a good reason for the permit to be granted? Why the board should feel comfortable in granting this permit?
Well, like I said before, with the scholarship funding that it's going to be giving us, it's more adequate for ASU students, and it's not just for an Arkansas State student employee, but also for one who's not. I come from a different county, and there were not very many Craighead County scholars, or all Craighead County scholarships, not just one from a different county. So it gives the opportunity for other counties to also receive a scholarship to come to ASU.
You make pretty good grades,
Yes, sir.
so you think you might be in line for one of these?
Yes, sir.
What is your GPA?
It's a 3.2.
That is pretty good. And on that, I'll end in keeping with our time constraints. Questions from the board?
Board have any questions? I think that's better than Mr. Vignoff's great point. The university is too much time on Dixon Street down there. All right, Mr. Hogue, you have questions? I'll tell you what we're going to do. If this is your last witness, we're going to take, for all of us senior citizens, about a 5-minute break here before Mr. Hogue starts his case. Mr. Hogue, you have questions of this witness?
First of all, do you know any reason why either Charleys or the nonprofit organization that was started social club didn't already be providing the scholarships to you right now?
Well, actually, if you do join that organization, I think it would provide more money for it, not just the limited amount that they would give you without having it.
Are there any scholarships provided right now?
As our company as a whole, but not as our restaurant individually.
As which company as a whole?
Charleys.
Okay, so Charleys is providing some scholarships now.
Yes.
Is Blue Dress Social Club providing any scholarships now?
I have no idea.
And do you see any reason why they shouldn't go ahead and provide scholarships with or without alcohol?
Like I said, it'll be more money coming in.
Okay, just because they're doing it. Okay, fair enough. Have you been trained on how to operate the membership book and the member book and guest book?
Well, as of right now, we do not have our license, so therefore I
Right.
would not need to know it until we receive it. We have a 5-day program we will go through.
And you're expecting to go through that?
Yes, I am.
You haven't been through it yet?
No.
Okay. You said there's lots of ASU students who have come through and they've signed a petition. Have you verified that all of those are 21 or older, or is it possible that some of them could have been younger than that?
They could be 18 or older. I
Okay.
made sure they were 18 or above.
Okay, and you checked IDs on that?
No, I did not.
That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to take about a 5 to
ready to go.
Okay, Mr. Hogue, you're up to bat.
State your name.
Dennis Beavers.
Is that close enough to the mic?
No.
You're good.
Okay. Is he good?
Dennis
Beavers.
Beavers?
Yes, B-E-A-V-E-R-S.
Dennis
Okay.
Beavers, okay.
Mr. Beavers, where do you live?
I live in Jonesboro, Arkansas.
Where in Jonesboro?
I live 1108 Lehman Drive. I live about 3 miles from the place of business that's requesting the liquor permit.
Okay. And Mr. Beavers, are you familiar with the intersection where Charleys is situated?
Very familiar.
All right. What I'd like you to do is first of all, I want you to, actually I'll do this part. I want to pass out, give it to the opposing counsel one copy of that. I'm going to just pass this map out down the line. I'm not looking to admit this so much as just publish it to the board members. There's already a map of the location in the record, and we don't need to file things up, but we do have this one we'd like to look at. Everyone on the board now is looking at this map, and I want you to tell them the intersection that map shows.
Okay. The primary intersection we're looking at here actually is to the sort of left-hand side of the page at the intersection actually of Caraway Road and Parker Road, which is the main intersection next to Charley's Restaurant, which on your map there is sort of dark, but there is a circle around the actual location of Charley's.
Okay, very good. And what I'd like you to do now is just explain to the board the surrounding buildings that are shown on this map in the O'Charley's area.
Okay. My concern, the reason I'm bringing this testimony is my concern is the current traffic congestion in that area at specific times especially, and the continued traffic growth in that area. Currently right now in that location right next door to Charley's is a Wendy's restaurant, and right across the street from Wendy's is a Colton's restaurant, which does a tremendous business, again without alcohol. And next to Colton's is El Chico's restaurant, which the board's already received a petition for an alcohol permit for El Chico's restaurant as well. Right next to El Chico's off of Parker Road is a Shake's Frozen Custard, which has a lot of traffic in and out. There is a drive-through business mainly. And then down that same entrance is the Malco Theater, which has a tremendous amount of traffic flow, again, at certain specific times, especially in the evening times, the evening hours where there will be the alcohol served at this location if permitted, as well as possibly then El Chico's. And so the traffic there gets very congested at times.
Mr. Beavers, before you keep going, it's my responsibility to make sure that things are clear on the record. You referred to a theater. What kind of theater? Is that plays or movies or how many screens or what?
That is a movie theater, and I believe that is a 12 or 13, I can be corrected, but somewhere in the range of 10 to 12 screens.
Okay, and you're obviously telling the board here today that you have some concerns about the traffic issues and the traffic congestion in this area. Can you give any particular knowledge of seeing traffic problems in this area or being involved in traffic problems in this area?
Yes, definitely firsthand, and people leaving O'Charley's can go one of two ways. They can go Parker Road toward the east, which actually would exit out on Stadium Drive, but the closest intersection, which the majority of traffic flow goes from that to the theater, as well as restaurants, goes again to Caraway. And that intersection of Caraway and Parker Road, the traffic many times is very, very backed up. Matter of fact, about 5 years ago, and the traffic has gotten much worse since then, my daughter got rear-ended on Caraway Drive at that intersection because the traffic was backed up clear back over the overpass, almost heading back toward Holiday Inn. Many times you come to that area, traffic is backed up, hundreds of yards because of the amount of cars going through that intersection And that was 5 years ago before all the increased traffic we see today.
There's signal light there. isn't
There's
there?
actually, unfortunately, Mr. Fuller, a double signal light, which adds to the confusion.
Yeah, I've been through
As
there.
you're coming off the freeway to Caraway, there's a light, and then also they're on Park the Road a light. So those two lights are probably just 100 to 200 yards apart, and that causes a lot of confusion at times, especially crossing lanes over there. So that adds to the problem right there.
So is this a clean, smooth flowing intersection, or do we have traffic congestion?
I believe personally, from going through there quite frequently, I do not go to Charleys, nothing personal. I just actually prefer Colton's restaurant, and we go there quite a bit, and also go to the movie theater quite a bit. So we do go there on a regular basis, and I find that there is quite a bit of confusion at that double intersection, double light. The traffic record shows for the past 18 months there were 31 accidents at that location. In the paper in Jonesboro Sun recently, it was listed as the 9th most accident-prone intersection in our city. And my concern is with this alcohol permit and perhaps the El Chicos and more in that area, we're just adding to the potential problem we already have in the area as far as traffic flow and congestion.
When you say 9th most accident-prone intersection, did they study all the intersections in the city? I mean, are we comparing this to 20 intersections studied or 2,000 intersections studied?
This is a report that was in the Jonesboro Sun from the police department, and I apologize, I meant to bring those records and forgot to, but it listed all the accidents or all the intersections in Jonesboro, and it had the 9th most accidents from June 1st of 2005 to May 31st of 2006.
Okay. Mr. Beavers, in the interest of brevity, is there anything else besides traffic that you'd like to point out to this board that gives you concerns or objections to this permit being granted?
I will say one thing also, just to clarify one thing. Fortunately, and I'm so thankful for everybody's benefit, those actions, that intersection so far to date have not been serious or fatal. And unfortunately, though, when we start adding alcohol to the mixture, we don't know what could happen. We know the state slogan all over the state of Arkansas says buzzed driving is drunk driving. So even with their great training program, how can we keep people from going away buzzed and facing those kind of intersections? My only other concern basically is in that area within 1/4 to half a mile, there's already 3 other main clubs, private clubs serving alcohol. Most of that traffic also exits toward Caraway. We're adding a tremendous amount of traffic flow and congestion, people drinking alcohol in one of our busiest streets already in the city.
Let me ask you a question that, I've been here almost 10 years now. And when I first came down here and when we originally had some folks coming down asking for private clubs, and I think one of the first ones we had, maybe been here a couple of years, we had somebody, I can't even think who it was now, it may have been a Charleys or may have been out back in Jonesboro, but if you'll remember, we had literally, at that point in time, we had probably every elected city official, every state representative came down here and said, we don't want this, we're against it. We had, as I remember, we had dueling petitions out here stacked up. I don't know whether you were here or not, but we had 8,000 or 10,000 people on each side of this issue that came down here. I think Bob Cohey was on the board then. And we had standing room only and people bringing buses down here. Give me your feelings as to why we have what have we got, the police chief, David, or the sheriff?
Sheriff.
We have a sheriff. What's happened that has seemingly changed the mindset of your elected officials up there? They don't come down here and outline traffic problems or any, I mean, they just don't come anymore. What is that my fault, your fault, the state's fault, the legislature's fault, or what? What do you think's happening here?
Personally, I can only give you my opinion, and I wasn't actually involved at that particular time when there was that kind of response. I got involved more about 5 years ago. Actually, my first involvement was with the actual Outback petition in 1999, but there wasn't that kind of response even then. I think you're talking about something even before that time.
It's gone steadily down.
Right. And unfortunately, at that time, there was still a great involvement actually on both sides of the issue and some good response. And I can only actually give you some conjecture from basically from our side, those who have been opponents of or against the continued issue of alcohol permits and the thing. And to be honest with you, since the interpretation of the recent House bill a couple years ago and opening up the private clubs to restaurants, and I'll be honest with you that there's been a lot of frustration in the city from both officials and especially from churches and from ministers, those who've been involved in the past, because now once it's been opened up that way in your interpretation, you said before, you going by the actual law that's in place. But it is frustrating when last time we were sitting here and the gentleman that's no longer is not with us today said, you have 4,000 petitions, the opponents have 600 petitions. Sometimes I take that into account, sometimes I don't. Today it really doesn't matter. And so even when we bring what we think is factual information of grave importance, it's like you're going to decide to do what you want to do based upon preconceived ideas. I'm just telling you what we're hearing in the city.
I understand.
Because the summary last time totally minimized all of our testimony, totally magnified all their testimony, and even reinterpreted and stated in ways that was not even brought out in the testimony. It was so obvious that that particular person, in my estimation, again my viewpoint, and that's pretty much the consensus that was coming, would vote for it regardless of what the procedures were. And so we've come to a point where there's great frustration in our city because of the way the board is currently operating. And I know that's your frustration also.
Sure. Well, after that law was passed the first time, Bobby, sit back there and tell you, I absolutely encouraged everybody I could talk to. If you don't like that law, get over there. Spend a tremendous amount of time at the legislature giving us what we have to deal with. And it didn't happen. And it hadn't happened yet. So, once again, we deal with what's sent over here.
I understand that completely. Our frustration, mine especially after coming down here several times in a row, is the fact is there are certain criteria, though, even to evaluate that law and interpretation that seems to be time and time negated and overlooked, like the number of petitions, a number of public officials. It's been used against us time and time again that we have no city officials on our behalf, but time and time again we have 3 and 4 on our behalf, on our side. We've never had one official yet in any of these hearings that's been passed give any kind of letter or backing for those applying for an alcohol permit. But yet it comes out in final testimony and the proposal that it comes against us because we only have 2 or 3, and they have none.
Well,
So
I know we turned
frustrating.
we turned down one of those that was dead downtown. That was next to the
Right next door to
church.
Powerhouse
Yeah,
Industry,
it was
yeah.
a Powerhouse.
And that's the only one.
Question.
All right.
Now, you've been with us several times.
Yes, sir.
Matter of fact, I believe you were here not long ago on the Outback Steakhouse on traffic. So
Yes,
you
sir.
must be the designated traffic man of
close.
Jonesboro.
Actually, I was here for that one, but did not bring any traffic information. I realized at that point we overlooked that very, very key issue.
Uh-huh. But now you've been here several other times on traffic, haven't you?
No, the time before, the last one, was attorney Sheffield's restaurant. I brought information concerning all the downtown intersections. Yes, sir.
So you're kind of the designated traffic man on the organization.
With others taking the effort to get the data and pull it together.
Well, since that we granted these permits, has in these traffic areas, because every time we have the Jonesboro, boy, every street up there must really be just packed with cars and dangers, because every time we have a hearing on Jonesboro, people come in here and they talk about how dangerous the streets are. I mean, is that a fair? I mean, why are they that dangerous in Jonesboro?
Now, again, that was never said or even applied today. We said there's a lot of traffic congestion and the possibility. The word was never used as dangerous, I don't believe. If I said, I take that back. But there is a lot of traffic congestion and increased traffic in our city. Matter of fact, I can answer very closely, I believe, an earlier question about the board. Matter of fact, the population in the 2000 census was supposedly 55,000. The report came out recently in the paper. They're now estimating Jonesboro at 59,000 plus. So it's continuing to grow. And so the traffic is continuing to increase. And not just Jonesboro, but with the increase of the mall and so forth, it's bringing more and more people to our city. Even though the mall is probably 1 to 2 miles away, those people are coming to Colton's, they're coming to Old Charleys, they're coming there to eat, so it's increasing traffic flow all over the city, not just over by the mall area. And so the traffic flow, I've been in the city 10 years, I live down very close to, my church is very close to Old Outback's restaurant. I guarantee you the traffic flow in that area has increased 5-fold, I know it has, since I've been there 10 years.
Just because of alcohol?
No, because the city's growing and because of the people coming to our city.
One more question, Mr. Chairman. I have one more question. Oh, absolutely.
It's worth pointing out that
worth pointing out that public restaurants that are looking for profit will situate themselves in busy intersections to maximize their profit. They're going to put a sign up. They're looking for the most profit and the most business they can get. A private club, which is not for profit, just for its own members and guests, is not going to put itself in a busy intersection. The fact that every time you hear somebody coming from Jonesboro saying that this is a busy intersection shows that these people are looking for profit and they're a public restaurant and they're placing themselves at the busy intersections. If you ask my clients, are there non-busy intersections in Jonesboro? The answer would be, well, of course there are. It's just that the private clubs aren't locating there because they're looking for more profit and more business.
Thank you. Final question, and I think maybe you've answered this before, but let me just ask you one more time. In your personal opinion, would you be happy if there was no alcohol whatsoever in Craighead County?
Well, I'd be happy if there was no alcohol in Craighead County.
Yeah, there was no outlets, no private clubs, any of that. Would
Tell you what, I'm going to answer that question. I'm going to be sort of like a politician because it's sort of a loaded question. You guys do this all the time. So I'm going to come back a little bit like that because I'm not here on my conviction just as a minister. In one sense, yeah, I think it'd be better for all of us as far as the moral behavior, the climate, the safety of everything because of what I believe what alcohol does in our society. But I believe each person has the individual right to decide for themselves. They're going to have alcohol in their home, drink and so forth. And I'm not opposed to that. That's their own individual choice. But as far as having it in restaurants and public facilities, yes, I'm opposed to that.
And so in this particular case, as in the other particular cases that you've been down here to testify in, your problem is not with this gentleman back here that he's, not been a good corporate citizen or he's not been a good guy, I guess would be maybe the cliche, but your problem is strictly about the alcohol. It's not about him, it's not about the restaurant, it's not about the location, it's about the alcohol issue in itself.
Yes and no. First of all, it has nothing to do with Mr. Odom, I believe it is, or the owners, managers of that business whatsoever. It is related to alcohol, but even more specifically, again, this situation is, as I think David said very, very clearly, again, it relates to alcohol in a heavy, congested area. And my concern is, as the state is now promoting, buzz driving is drunk driving. My concern is, I hope it never happens, is adding that extra mixture of impaired decision-making ability in a heavy area with young people and adults as well coming to and from the movie theaters, the restaurants, and the potential, even this word, danger it could pose in the days ahead. Because there's more restaurants coming, asking for permits. Chico's already on the board, on the list, so it's going to increase.
Do you feel any solace at all that they presented what looks to be a pretty good program here that they're trying, if they were granted a permit, they would do their best? Does that give you any assurance or?
I can answer that question as sort of a yes and no. I believe as a corporation, something they have either already in place to serve alcohol safely and responsibly, and I believe they probably do that to the best of their ability. And there's no way to always, guarantee that, but I believe they probably do that. My concern, though, again, specifically in this situation is, unfortunately, it appears to me that from the testimony given that the manager has little to no understanding, really, of how to operate the difference between a private club and a profit club, and many questions he should have known, had no knowledge of how they're going to do it, but yet you give them an out many times and said, well, you're going to do this right, you're going to set this up right.
Well, so the reason I said that is we're going to make sure if they granted a permit, they're going to have to come in under the regulations to do it right. I mean, we're going to require them to do the things I pointed out. But okay, well, listen, that helps me. Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Thanks for coming. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm jumping the gun there.
Gosh, let me know.
Mr. Bakers, you are a pastor up here?
Yes, sir.
What church is that?
Living Word Church on Southwest Drive.
And y'all are against alcohol, is that correct?
My general conviction is against alcohol, yes.
You are against alcohol.
Yeah, I would say this, I'm not a proponent of alcohol, and I believe that it does more evil than good for our society.
cited. I believe that this accident statistic report shows that 20 of them were property damage only. Is that correct?
That's probably correct. Most of them were, like I said, most of them were minor, fortunately, in severity and fatality, and most of them were property damage, yes.
And 9 were no visible injury with complaints of pain.
Yes, sir.
And 2 accidents in the last year on the corner of Caraway Park Road resulted in any visible injury to anyone.
Correct.
So 2 accidents at this intersection that you're telling this board and these commissioners are too busy for this private property.
Yes, that is true. Again, there's 31 actions, so any one of those is potentially a bodily injury situation. And you add the influence of alcohol and impaired decision making, any one of those could become a severe situation. As I said, fortunately, they have not been. I hope that continues the case.
And then you also got the accident statistics on Stadium and Parker, and Stadium is the other exit or way off of Parker Road to the east. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You didn't tell the board about that, did you, sir?
No, for time's sake, we elected just to summarize because that's not the main intersection. Most traffic flows the other direction.
Well, now, have you gone out and counted cars leaving Charleys to see whether most cars go to Parker or whether most cars go to Caraway?
Sir, I've been through there many times. I know the traffic flows heavier to Caraway than to Parker, than the stadium on that area.
Counted on Charleys cars, whether most of them are going to Parker or whether most of them are going to Stadium or most of them are going to Caraway?
No, sir.
And at the intersection of Stadium and Parker, there were only 8 accidents between January 1 of the 05 and July 14th of 06. Is that correct?
I believe it. Yeah, not. That's correct. Yes.
And 6 of those accidents were property damage only. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
1 was no visible injury but a complaint paid.
Yes, sir.
And 1 was where there was a visible injury.
That's correct.
And you agree the Stadium and Parker is the other way that people who leave from Charleys could get out to other ways.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, David, do you have anything else here? Okay.
Mr. Beavers, does the fact of fatal injuries, visible injuries, or property damage and such have anything to do with whether the traffic is congested?
No, sir.
Does the amount of actual accidents, regardless of the type of injury, show maybe the amount of congestion rather than the types of injuries?
I believe so. Yes.
Thank you. That's all.
I have one other question. Does the Charleys parking lot come out at the intersection of Caraway and Parker, or does it come out only onto Parker Road?
I believe in. I feel I'm not the expert on that situation again, but it does come out on Parker Road. It's not actually directly on the Caraway, from my understanding.
That's all this witness or Bob has to do.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce this, David? I know there's already another map.
That's fine. I'll move it.
It doesn't have the detail this one does. We talked this thing all the way back to Alaska, so this will be just for number 2, your opposition. Number 1. Yeah, I think you carry on. Yes, you got it right.
I do. I'm about to get there.
But this will be number 1. Okay.
Bob, are you sure that wasn't your cousin we granted that last permit?
Could have been.
Mr. Hester, please state your name.
Bob
so the
Hester.
board will know you.
It's on Arkansas.
Very good. So the record will recognize you also. Mr. Hester, you live in Jonesboro, Arkansas. You're familiar with this board and the proceedings here, is that right?
Very much so. Yes.
You've been here on multitudes of occasions and testified a few times at least.
I think once.
Okay. Mr. Hester, my questions for you are pretty simple. What I'd like you to do, first of all, is identify the documents in the folder in front of you. Tell me what those are and how many names we have.
Well, that looks like the opposition petitions and.
I'm going to read those opposition petitions. The petition.
I guess I would ask that I be able to question my witness to identify.
Yeah, let
before we
him
begin
identify him first, if you don't mind, Counselor, and then we'll go. we take petitions of all sorts, shapes, sizes, and flavors up here.
If Mr. Hester, let's go back, if you would, tell me what's in the folder in front of you.
Petitions, opposition petitions to this application.
Okay, and how many names do you have on there?
Pretty close to 1,845. I wouldn't say that would be 100% exact, but that would be really, really close.
Okay, is there going to be a chance that some of those names are outside of Craighead County?
Slim chance. I would say it's a possibility that a few of them, but I'd say they would be rare.
Okay, is it fair to say that just as one side has some names outside of Craighead County, the other side is going to have some names outside of Craighead County?
Yes.
Okay.
I could say a little bit more than that, but maybe I should.
How were these petitions circulated?
Basically, through the churches more, but we nearly always have somebody that'll take them to the neighbors or senior citizens or something like that. That's the quickest way for us. I mean, it would be kind of.
Were the churches where these petitions were circulated in Craighead County?
Oh yes.
And do you have any confidence in the fact that most of the people or all of the people who have signed their names to these petitions are over the age of 21?
Yes.
Okay. I'll now move to admit the petitions.
Do you have any objections to these petitions? All right. No, we'll note your objections, but we're probably going to accept, we always accept petitions from both sides, always. Yeah, that's what, I'm saying. I'm wanting to state his objection and we'll note it.
Pursuant to section 1.21, branch 7, reg, oh my gosh, page 15, it says any group may register their support or opposition to an application by submitting petitions to the agency. And it says, in addition, petitions must refer to a specific application.
Is your objection going to be is your objection to the fact that both say on Chico and Bluegrass Social Club? Good, we can help you on that.
We can straighten that out.
We can straighten that out because Mr. Hester, I don't know when it was, a month ago, asked the director, Mr. Moore, that in view of the fact that El Chico's, which has a pending application, and El Charleys, which has the subject of today's process, were almost across the street from each other and next door to each other. And instead of having two sets of petitions that would be on the two places that were across the street and next door to each other, would he just combine them? And Mr. Moore talked to Mr. Fuller.
Director said that would be okay at the time.
And as a matter of fact, if you look at today's private club resume, the El Chico was denied, and there's a little note on those petitions which says it was done with her okay.
Do you wish to still object to the petitions or, okay.
All right.
We will note those objections. Thank you.
Proceed.
Hester ran scraps first.
Mr. Hester, please identify the stack that I placed in front of you now. The letter.
So the letter, Steve Jacobson.
Bobby,
Oh,
you need to talk
sorry about that.
There's a camera back there that needs to hear you.
It's a letter from.
Before we get away from this petition, my secretary reminded me that she typed to the private club president. The dual petitions were only 186 in the file. So, we're now increasing from 186 to 1,800. He can object on that, but as far as them both named in the same place, the director told him you're good, the chairman told him you're good.
Sure, and for what it's worth, I recognize that we already have some petitions in the file. Whatever they say, the board can take those for whatever weight they want to give it.
Okay.
Please identify the letter in front of you.
Letter of opposition to this application from Reverend Steve Jacobson, pastor Friendly Old Baptist Church.
Okay. And I'm not going to ask you to read it. I'm going to give it to Ms. Cohey and pass it down and take one of those. They already have a copy. Keep that right there. And what I'm going to do is go through all these, identify them, and then I'll ask to introduce them all as one. Next letter, please identify.
This bulk of petitions is number 2 opposition.
Very good.
All right.
I'm glad Reverend Jackson got in elected to the legislature here in a monumental case of short-sightedness. He didn't mince any words there, did he?
Please identify what's in front of you, Mr. Hester.
Okay, this is a letter from Craighead County Judge Dale Haas in opposition to this application.
One for yourself.
He even got a lick in at the governor here too. Said governor was playing gamesmanship that bordered on cowardice. We need to make sure the governor knows what Reverend Jacobson thinks of him here.
Before we get carried away with the letter, this is the petition that was placed in the Chico.
Right.
Letter 186. This petition has the exact same heading. There's just more.
Right.
Good, we're all straight on that, and the record is to keep going.
Okay, please identify this letter.
This is a letter from Mrs. Mary Suter. She is a justice of the peace there at Craighead County, a member of the Board of Court, in opposition to this application.
I see the confusion of someone at the end of the table, and what I'm doing is having him go through all these letters and identify them on the record, and then I'm going to give you a stack to introduce.
Okay, so I can lay this letter aside from Dale Haas.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a stack.
All right.
Next.
This is a letter of opposition from Quorum Court member Dan Oswald, Craighead County Quorum Court member, and it's a letter of opposition to this application.
All right.
Is Miss Suter someone that lives close to the establishment, Bob, or what does she do in the community there?
No, she does not live.
Is she retired or?
Yes.
Okay.
This is another letter of opposition from another Quorum Court member, Jim Bryant,
Okay.
to this application.
And one over for yourself. Did I hear somebody start asking questions? Okay. Mr. Hester.
Could I
Yeah.
respond to Reverend Jacobson's last paragraph? This is the constitutionality of private closed proprietary has been decided, March versus First 1102, 1988, and
Jim Bryant, Justice of the Peace, is he elected?
Yes.
And Dan Oswald, Quorum Court District 2, is he elected?
Yes.
And Ms. Mary Suter, is she elected?
Yes.
Craighead County Judge, elected position?
Yes.
And finally, Mr. Jacobson, can you tell, do you have any idea how big that church is?
That's relatively small, less than 100 members, but I don't know.
Okay, this would be opposition 3.
Right.
You know, I got to tell you though, David, and Bob, I find it kind of personally offensive that I take personal offense at what Reverend Jacobson is saying here. He, you know, he's been down here before and testified, and we have very graciously listened to his testimony. And, you know, to send a letter like this down here accusing the governor of cowardice and some of the things he said in here, quite frankly, it shows a little act of personal cowardice on his part for sending a letter down here without allowing us to at least ask him why he feels that way. Now, I certainly respect his right to anybody to send a letter down here, but Governor Mike Huckabee is my personal friend, and I really take umbrage at him accusing the governor of gamesmanship and cowardice. I think that's way off base. I hope the media's out here.
Mr. Hester, do you have any other reasons besides what's included in these letters and petitions that you'd like to offer the board to deny this permit?
Just general overall concern about the proliferation of alcohol into our county and you know, the consequences of it. That's pretty much it. I think whether Denny Beavers said it well as anybody could say it a lot better than I can say it.
Okay, the rest.
Bobby, thank you always.
No.
And I'll say this about Bobby Hester. Bobby's always on the same page, and he doesn't mind saying things to my face or your face or anybody else, and I will commend you for that. I think Mr. Latimer has a question.
I do too.
Yes, I certainly do as well. Bob, can you tell us, excuse excuse me, Reverend Jacobson referred to this vote, 70,000 Craighead County people. What year was that in?
Well, the vote was in 70. I talked to somebody about it the other day. I think in the in the 70s. 70.
1978.
That
Yeah,
county
I thought
voted
it
to
was
stay
late.
dry, right?
Yes, and it was about
Okay.
2-1 in drought. Yeah, well, I think we mentioned this the last time, or
Yeah.
a couple of times back.
So it's something that has been replaced by legislation.
Mr. Latimer, as our alternate board member here, is absolutely right. A totally dry county that has been legislation has accommodated people in these dry counties, and that's what we deal with. And I'm sorry people don't accept that.
Act 132.
Absolutely.
I don't argue that.
Bob, let me ask you this question.
Go ahead, JJ.
You're a straight shooter. I just want to get this on the record.
I'm not a straight shooter. I don't believe.
You don't need to be.
This has nothing to do with the gentleman, has nothing to do with the location. Your opposition is to alcohol and would you consider yourself a prohibitionist?
Well, let me say, we went through that before, and I don't really care to go through it again because you've got my answer. But let's back up on your question. What was repeat your question? Because I think I started to say, yeah, I agree with that, but do it again.
Okay.
Are you a prohibitionist?
No, not that about why I was opposed to this particular one.
Yeah, I just asked you, was it the applicant, the person asking for the permit is?
Oh, no, I have nothing personal against
Don't know him, nothing against him.
Absolutely not. I don't have
And
anybody
the location
against anybody in this world.
Is the location a
But
problem?
the location, yes, I think the location is a problem. You know, those are the merits of the case. That location is a problem when you have I was almost in a wreck at that intersection the other day, and a friend of mine was a couple of years ago. I don't know if Mr. Beavers mentioned. I think he mentioned his daughter, whatever. That is, I go to eat Colton's and never have eaten at old Charleys or Chico's, and it's a busy place.
Would you characterize yourself as opposed to any other liquor permits in Craighead County?
I accept the fact there is a private club law that we referenced. I mean, it's been challenged a couple of times, and we've gone through that, I think, here.
You don't like it, but it's there.
Exactly. Don't like it, but it's
Don't
there.
like it, but
But again, I, along with a bunch of other folks, can't understand private being public, or public being private, and non-profit, or for-profit being non-profit. Maybe that's because I went to school in Bono, but I just can't seem to understand it.
Well, let me ask you this, Bob. I mean, you've made that argument over and over. This gentleman back here has made that argument. The Pastor Jacobson has been down here. Howard over here has made this argument. If that's the case, why do the court systems keep upholding it?
I don't know, David. You're in the court for that. I'm not sure. Do they?
I don't know that any of that.
Let me see if I can clarify maybe
Yeah.
what you're talking.
Yeah.
Bob, have you ever figured up the census figures for counties that are dry and counties that are wet, so far as the population growth of the wets, and what's the result?
Well, if you take them, and I don't believe in slicing and dicing, I just believe put the figures out there, but I did run them from 90 to 2000, and the average for the dry counties is 22%, and the average for the wet is 7.4, or something like that. And I know there are other factors to consider, you know, individual cases, but when you just take them as all, the dry counties are doing fantastic, growing like weeds, as they used to say, doing great, and it's all without alcohol. And what happens, Mr. Ladner, is, as I've told this before, and I'll make it quick because I know we all go home, I do especially. They're not coming in with a sack of money and say, look, you're not doing very good. We got this bag of money here. We want to help y'all out. They come in where the place is growing. They come in to get a piece of the pie, and that's just common sense. No, nobody has to figure that out. Because that's just
What's wrong with
crazy.
that? This is America.
Yes, but when some other things are not considered, when people's opinions are not considered.
How are people's opinions not considered, Bob?
Concerns about the result of alcohol, when those seem to be ignored from time to time. But, you know, we could debate this thing all day long, and I could do it in a friendly way, and I'd love to because I love debating. But, yeah, I think it's useless here to do that. That's just my opinion.
No, wait a minute. I got one more question.
Okay.
Do you agree with this letter? Yes or no?
I think the letter is kind of harsh. But now he's a friend of mine, and that's his opinion, the way he would do it, and I do things different than some folks, and I just try to be.
Okay.
Thanks, Bob.
Bob, thank you as always for coming, and as always, I do commend you for being a real straight shooter. Do you have any questions, Mr. Hester? Well, thank you, Bob. Anything else, Mr. Hogan? Okay, you have anything else that you do need to put in the record, or things you might need to put in the record?
Original letter, John original change of camera, in favor of the application.
Thank you.
Number 12. Yes. And then I have the 2006 Quality of Life Survey, City of Jonesboro, February 2006. Which on the alcohol issue shows that those 2006 Quality of Life percentage strongly opposing is 43.8%, strongly supporting or supporting 46.5%.
Okay, I got a problem with this, and you can fix my problem. As far as trying to protect the board on the record, we get these multi-page things, and of course, they're gonna make a decision, but they're not gonna do it, come back tomorrow. Sure. Exactly one part of this multi-page exhibit on quality of life survey, this was, paying attention to, what is the big deal?
The only portion that I believe applies to this is on the fourth page of the document.
Alcohol policy?
Yes.
All right, and what is your position to the board about why this portion of the document is important?
Because they were talking about the voting, and this shows 43.8% either strongly opposed or opposed, and 46.5% currently strongly support. So the percentages have changed substantially since 1978.
All right, but this is just a survey. This is not
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's the same thing they've introduced every time.
Yeah, we've seen this several times. Okay, are you satisfied then, Mr. Bennett?
Yeah.
Takes care of you.
Well, I don't want is on the deal. Someone to come out and say, well, we offer this exhibit, and the board totally approved this part of the exhibit. And when they give you these multi-page exhibits and they're explaining to you, then it's going to be a good bit.
Okay. Mr. Hogue, you have anything else you need to put in? Okay then, in the case of board members have anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, we've been here quite a little while on this one. In the case